The year was 2187. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Assembly 3 years ago, and in that short time, they had learned one important truth. The galaxy did not respect them. Commander Daniel Porter stood in the briefing room of NASA headquarters and looked at the holographic image floating before him. The planet was red and black, covered in volcanoes and storm clouds. Lightning struck its surface every few seconds. Even from space, it looked angry. Cathro 7, said Admiral Grace Howard. She was an old woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Class-15 Deathworld, the most dangerous classification in the galaxy. Daniel had read the reports. The Galactic Assembly classified planets by danger level from 1 to 15. Earth was a Class 12, which had shocked every alien species when they learned it. Most intelligent life evolved on Class 3 or Class 4 worlds. Gentle planets with mild weather and stable conditions. Humans were different. They came from a world with earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, and predators that could kill in seconds. The galaxy called them crazy for surviving such a place. But Cathro 7 was worse than Earth. Much worse. Every species that has tried to explore this planet has died, Admiral Howard continued. The Tyranny sent a team of 50 soldiers 3,000 years ago. None returned. The Velish sent robots 2,000 years ago. The robots melted within an hour. The planet has been forbidden for exploration for the last 4,000 years. Daniel crossed his arms. Then why are we going? The Admiral smiled, but there was no humor in it. Because the Assembly wants to test us. They gave us special permission. They expect us to fail. They expect us to die. Dr. Laura Mitchell stepped forward. She was the mission's xenobiologist, a woman with brown hair and curious eyes. She had spent her whole life studying alien life forms, and now she would get to see a world no living being had visited in millennia. What do we know about the surface conditions? She asked. Temperature swings from -80 to +200 degrees Celsius within hours, Admiral Howard said. The atmosphere is corrosive. Gravity is 1.7 times Earth standard. Electromagnetic interference blocks most communications. Radiation levels are extreme. Kevin Brooks, the young engineer assigned to the mission, let out a low whistle. Sounds like fun. Lieutenant Maria Santos, the pilot, shook her head. Sounds like suicide. It might be, the Admiral admitted. But if we succeed, we prove that humanity belongs in this galaxy. We prove that we are not the weak newcomers everyone thinks we are. Daniel looked at his team. Kevin was young but brilliant. Maria was the best pilot NASA had ever trained. Dr. Christopher Lane, their medical officer, had saved lives in conditions that would have killed lesser doctors. And Laura had a mind that never stopped working. They were the best humanity had to offer. When do we leave? Daniel asked. Tomorrow, Admiral Howard said. The Endeavour is ready. The next morning, Daniel stood on the bridge of the Endeavour and watched Earth grow smaller through the viewport. The ship was humanity's finest achievement. It could travel faster than light, survive extreme conditions, and carry a crew of 50 if needed. For this mission, they only had 5. The journey to Cathro 7 took 3 weeks. During that time, Daniel reviewed every piece of data the Assembly had shared about the planet. It was not much. Most of it was just warnings to stay away. But Laura found something interesting on the second week. Commander, she said, calling him to her station. Look at this. She pointed at old scan data from a Tyranny probe that had orbited the planet before crashing. The image was fuzzy and broken, but Daniel could see shapes on the surface. Those look like buildings, he said. Laura nodded. Structures. Artificial ones. Someone built something on that planet. That is impossible, Dr. Lane said, looking over their shoulders. Nothing can survive down there. Nothing we know of, Lava replied. But someone did. A long time ago. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. This mission had just become much more interesting. 3 days later, the Endeavour dropped out of faster-than-light travel and entered orbit around Cathro 7. The planet filled the viewport, and Daniel heard Maria gasp. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Red lightning cracked across black clouds. Rivers of lava flowed across the surface. Massive volcanoes erupted in the distance, sending plumes of ash into the sky. Sensors are going crazy, Kevin reported from his station. Radiation is off the charts. Temperature readings are fluctuating wildly. I am having trouble keeping our systems stable. Can we land? Daniel asked. Maria studied her controls. Yes, but it will not be easy. There is a valley between two volcanic ridges that looks stable. We can set down there. Daniel looked at his crew. They all looked back at him with steady eyes. They knew the risks. They had accepted them. Take us down, he ordered. The descent was the roughest any of them had ever experienced. The ship shook violently as they passed through the atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across every console. At one point, the engines nearly failed, and Maria had to restart them manually while Kevin rerouted power from non-essential systems. But they made it. The Endeavour touched down on the surface of Cathro 7, the first ship to land on the planet in 4,000 years. Daniel stood up from his command chair and looked through the viewport. The landscape was harsh and alien. Black rocks stretched in every direction. The sky was the color of dried blood. And in the distance, half buried under volcanic glass, he could see the structures Laura had detected. They were not just buildings. They were ruins. The remains of a civilization that had somehow existed on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. What did we just find? Maria whispered. Daniel did not have an answer, but he intended to find out. The airlock hissed open, and Commander Daniel Porter stepped onto the surface of Cathro 7. His boots crunched against black volcanic rock. The gravity pulled at him harder than Earth ever had, making every step feel like he was carrying a heavy weight. Stay close, he said through the communication system built into his helmet. And watch your suits. One breach could kill you. The 5 crew members moved forward in a tight formation. Dr. Lavra Mitchell walked beside Daniel, her eyes fixed on the distant ruins. Kevin Brooks kept checking his scanner, monitoring radiation levels and atmospheric conditions. Lieutenant Maria Santos stayed near the ship, ready to call for emergency evacuation if needed. Dr. Christopher Lane carried a medical kit that he had modified for extreme conditions. The wind hit them like a wall. It was hot and carried particles of ash that scratched against their visors. Daniel could hear the material of his suit creaking under the pressure. Temperature is rising, Kevin reported. We may be 2 hours before it gets too hot for our suits to handle. Then we move fast, Daniel replied. They walked toward the ruins. The ground was uneven, cracked by ancient lava flows that had hardened into jagged shapes. Twice, Daniel had to grab Laura to stop her from falling into hidden cracks. After 30 minutes of walking, they reached the outer edge of the structures. Up close, they were even more impressive than the scans had suggested. The buildings were massive, made from some kind of metal that had resisted the planet's extreme conditions for thousands of years. This is incredible, Lavra breathed. Look at the construction. Look at the precision. Whoever built this had technology far beyond anything we have seen. Kevin ran his scanner over one of the walls. The metal is not in any database. It is not matching any known element or alloy. Daniel touched the surface. It was smooth and cold despite the heat around them. Symbols were carved into it, flowing lines that looked like writing. Can you read it? He asked Laura. She shook her head. Not yet, but I will figure it out. They found an entrance, a doorway that led into darkness. Daniel activated the light on his helmet and stepped inside. The others followed. The interior was protected from the planet's harsh conditions. The walls were lined with more of the strange metal, and the floor was covered in a thin layer of dust. No one had walked here in a very long time. "The air quality inside is stable," Kevin said with surprise in his voice. "The structure is sealed. We could actually breathe in here if we wanted." "Let us keep the suits on for now," Daniel said. "We do not know what else might be in here." They moved deeper into the ruins. The corridors twisted and turned, leading them underground. Larver documented everything, taking pictures and recordings of every symbol they passed. Then they entered a large chamber, and everyone stopped. The room was filled with technology, machines that none of them recognized lining the walls. In the center was a raised platform with a console covered in controls and displays. And on the far wall was a massive screen, dark and silent. "This is some kind of control center," Kevin said. "But for what?" Lavra walked to the console and studied the symbols. Her translator was working hard, trying to find patterns. After several minutes, her eyes went wide. "I have partial translation," she said. "These symbols keep repeating. They say Varanti." "Varanti?" Daniel repeated. "What is that?" "Not what," Lavra said slowly. "Who?" "The Varanti were the founders of the Galactic Assembly. They created the Alliance over 50,000 years ago. But they went extinct. Every species in the galaxy knows the story. The Varanti disappeared, and no one knows why." Dr. Lane stepped closer. "Are you saying the Varanti built this place?" "I am saying the Varanti lived here," Lavra replied. "On this planet. On the most dangerous world in the galaxy." The implications were staggering. The founders of galactic civilization had not lived on some paradise world. They had lived on a Class-15 Deathworld. Before anyone could respond, a sound came from outside. A deep rumble that shook the ground beneath their feet. "That was not thunder," Maria said through the communication link. She was still outside, watching the ship. "Commander, you need to get back here. The weather is changing." They moved quickly back through the corridors. When they emerged outside, Daniel saw what Maria meant. The sky had turned darker. The clouds were swirling in a pattern he did not recognize, and then the rain started. It was not water. The liquid that fell from the sky hissed when it hit the ground. Steam rose from every surface it touched. "Acid rain," Kevin shouted. "Move now." They ran toward the ship. The rain hit Daniel's suit, and he could hear it eating through the outer layer. An alarm beeped in his helmet, warning him of suit damage. Kevin stumbled. A drop of the acid had found a weak point in his suit near the shoulder. He screamed as it burned through to his skin. Dr. Lane was at his side in seconds. He pulled out emergency patches and slapped them over the breach. Then he sprayed a chemical neutralizer on Kevin's wound. "Keep moving," Lane ordered. "I will hold him together until we reach the ship." They made it inside with seconds to spare. Maria sealed the airlock just as the rain intensified. Through the viewport, Daniel watched the acid eat small holes in the ground outside. Kevin was in pain but alive. Lane worked on his wound, cleaning and bandaging it with quick, practiced movements. "He will be fine," the doctor said. But that was too close. Daniel nodded. He looked at Laura, who was still holding her scanner, reviewing the data she had collected. "What did you find in there?" he asked. Laura looked up. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning with excitement. "I found more translations," she said. "The Varanti did not die from this planet. They made the planet dangerous. They transformed it into a death world on purpose." "Why would anyone do that?" Maria asked. "To hide something," Lavra replied. "Something they were protecting. And I think I know where it is." There was a door in that chamber. A sealed vault. It would not open when I tried. Daniel made his decision. Then we go back. As soon as the rain stops, we find that vault. Outside, the acid rain continued to fall. But inside the Endeavor, the crew of 5 humans prepared to discover a secret that had been buried for 50,000 years. The acid rain stopped after 6 hours. Commander Daniel Porter barely slept during that time. He kept thinking about what Laura had discovered. The Varanthi had not died on this planet. They had made it dangerous on purpose. What could possibly require such extreme protection? When sensors confirmed the atmosphere was stable enough, Daniel gathered his team. Kevin's wound was bandaged, and he insisted on coming despite Dr. Lane's concerns. "I did not come this far to stay in the ship," Kevin said. "I am going." Daniel respected that. They were all the same. None of them would quit now. The walk back to the ruins was easier this time. They knew the path, and the weather was calm. The sky was still dark red, but the clouds had stopped swirling. They entered the control chamber, and Lavra led them to the back wall. There, hidden between 2 machines, was a door. It was made of the same strange metal as everything else, but it had no handle, no visible way to open it. "I tried everything yesterday," Lavra said. "Voice commands, pushing, scanning. Nothing worked." Daniel stepped closer and studied the door. There was a small panel beside it, about the size of a human hand. The surface looked different from the rest of the door. Smoother, almost organic. "I think it needs biological input," he said. "A handprint or something similar, from a Varanthi?" Lane asked. "We do not have one of those." Daniel did not answer. He pulled off his glove and pressed his bare hand against the panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the panel glowed with blue light. Daniel felt a tingling sensation in his palm, like electricity, but softer. The door made a deep clicking sound and slowly slid open. Everyone stared at him. "It accepted you," Lavra whispered. "A human. It accepted a human." Daniel did not understand why, but he could not stop to think about it. The door was open, and beyond it was darkness. He activated his light and stepped through. The chamber beyond was massive. It stretched farther than his light could reach, and it was filled with rows upon rows of large pods, thousands of them, arranged in perfect lines that disappeared into the shadows. "What are those?" Kevin asked, his voice small. Laura walked to the nearest pod and looked through the transparent cover. She gasped and stumbled backward. "There's something inside," she said. "Someone. They are alive." Daniel looked into the pod. Inside was a being unlike any he had seen before. It was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and features that looked almost peaceful in sleep. It wore robes of deep purple, and its chest rose and fell slowly. "These are stasis pods," Lane said, moving between the rows and checking his scanner. "Long-term cryogenic sleep. These beings have been in here for thousands of years." "They are Varanthi," Lavra breathed. "The founders are not extinct. They've been sleeping here all along." A sound echoed through the chamber, a humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then, on the far wall, a massive screen flickered to life. The image showed a Varanthi standing in what looked like this same chamber, but filled with light and activity. The being was old, its face lined with age and wisdom. When it spoke, the words were translated automatically, appearing in English at the bottom of the screen. "If you are seeing this message, then you have proven yourself worthy. You have survived our world. You have passed our test." Daniel felt his crew gather behind him, watching the recording. "We are the Varanthi," the elder continued. 50,000 years ago, we founded the Galactic Assembly. We brought peace to a galaxy that knew only war. But our time of leadership ended when we discovered a threat we could not defeat. The image shifted to show empty space. Then something appeared in the blackness. It was not a ship or a creature. It was darkness itself, moving and spreading like a living shadow. We called it the Hollow. It came from beyond our galaxy, from the void between stars. It does not conquer. It does not destroy. It consumes. It feeds on intelligent life, draining the minds and souls of entire civilizations until nothing remains but empty shells. The screen showed planets going dark, ships drifting without power, billions of lives simply ending. We fought the Hollow for 1,000 years. We lost. Our technology was not enough. Our numbers were not enough. In the end, we could only drive it back, wounded enough to make it retreat into the void to heal. The Elder's face returned to the screen. We knew it would come back. So we made a choice. We transformed our homeworld into the most dangerous place in the galaxy. We entered sleep, hiding ourselves, waiting for a species that could survive where we could not. Daniel understood now. The door had opened for him because he was human. Because humans had evolved on a Deathworld too. The Hollow fears those who are forged in hardship. Species that survive impossible conditions carry a strength the Hollow cannot consume. We hoped that one day such a species would find us, that they would wake us, that together we might finally end the Hollow forever. The recording flickered. If you are watching this, then the Hollow is returning. Our long-range sensors have detected its approach. It will reach inhabited space soon. We do not know how much time remains, but we trust that you found us because you are ready. The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a sound came from behind them. The hiss of releasing gas. One of the stasis pods was opening. Daniel turned and watched as the cover slid away. The Varanthi inside opened its eyes. They were gold, bright, and intelligent. The being sat up slowly, looking around the chamber until its gaze found Daniel. It spoke, and its voice was deep and ancient. "You came," the Varanthi said in perfect English. "That means it is time." Daniel stepped forward. "Time for what?" The Varanthi stood. Despite its ancient age, it moved with grace and strength. "Time to wake my people. Time to prepare for war. The Hollow has returned, and the galaxy will need every defender it can find." More pods began to hiss. More covers began to slide open. Throughout the massive chamber, the Varanthi were waking from their 50,000-year sleep, and at the center of it all stood 5 humans, who had just become the most important people in the galaxy. The Varanthi elder's name was Sorth. He had lived for over 3,000 years before entering sleep, and he carried the weight of those centuries in his golden eyes. Commander Daniel Porter sat across from him in what had once been the Varanthi Command Center. The chamber was alive now, filled with light and the soft sounds of ancient machines coming back to life. Thousands of Varanthi moved through the halls, stretching muscles that had not been used in 50,000 years. "You must contact your people," Sorth said, "and the Galactic Assembly. They need to know what is coming." Daniel nodded. He had already sent Lieutenant Maria Santos back to the Endeavor to establish a communication link. What he was about to transmit would change everything. 2 hours later, the message reached Earth. Admiral Grace Howard watched the recording with her mouth open. Then she watched it again. Then she called an emergency meeting of every government leader on the planet. At the same time, the Galactic Assembly received the transmission at their headquarters on the neutral world of Karath. The reaction there was very different. The assembly chamber erupted in chaos. "This is impossible," shouted Ambassador Veth of the Tarani, a species of tall, 4-armed beings. "The Varanthi have been extinct for 50,000 years. This is clearly a human trick." "It is not a trick," replied the Earth representative, a calm woman named Director Chun. "Our team found them. The Varanthi are alive. Even if this is true, said another ambassador, a small creature covered in blue scales. The recording speaks of a threat called the Hollow. We have no records of such a thing, because the Varanthi erased them, Director Chun explained. They did not want to cause panic. They thought they would handle it themselves. The chamber fell into arguing again. Species blamed each other. Some demanded proof. Others demanded that Kethro 7 be destroyed before the Hollow could find it. On Kethro 7, Daniel received reports of the chaos with growing frustration. He stood beside Sorath, watching the transmissions from across the galaxy. They do not believe you, Daniel said. They are afraid, Sorath replied. Fear makes intelligent beings do foolish things. The Hollow is beyond their understanding. They would rather deny its existence than face the truth. What can we do? Sorath turned to look at him. You must speak to them. Not me. If I appear before the assembly, they will see a ghost, a memory from ancient history. But you are new. You are one of them. You represent the future, not the past. Daniel was not a politician. He was a soldier and an explorer. But he understood what Sorath was asking. Sometimes, the right person to deliver a message was not the wisest or the most powerful. Sometimes it was simply the one who was willing to stand up. I will do it, he said. 3 days later, Daniel Porter stood in the center of the Galactic Assembly chamber. Thousands of alien representatives watched him from their seats, arranged in a massive circle that rose toward a dome ceiling. The room was designed to make individuals feel small. Daniel refused to let it work. I am not here to argue, he began. His voice carried through the chamber, translated instantly into 100 languages. I am not here to convince you of anything. I am here to tell you what I saw and what I know. He took a breath and continued. 3 weeks ago, I landed on a planet that your assembly said was impossible to survive. My crew and I walked on ground where dozens of expeditions died. We breathed air that melted metal. And we found the Varanthi, alive, waiting. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Daniel kept talking. They waited for 50,000 years because they knew something was coming. Something they could not defeat alone. They transformed their world into a death trap to protect themselves. And they slept until someone strong enough came to wake them. He paused and looked around the room. That someone was us, humans, the species you thought was weak, the newcomers you expected to die. Silence now. Every eye was on him. The Hollow is real. It is coming. In 3 years, maybe less, it will reach inhabited space. And when it arrives, it will not negotiate. It will not offer peace. It will feed on everything we are until nothing is left. Ambassador Veth rose from his seat. And what do you suggest? Human, that we follow you into battle? Your species has been in space for less than a decade. What could you possibly know about fighting a galactic threat? Daniel looked at the tall Tyranni without flinching. I know that we survived Earth. I know that we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Earthquakes, volcanoes, predators, disease. Our planet never stopped testing us, and we never stopped fighting back. That is what humans do. We fight. He pointed toward the door, where Sorath now stood, having entered silently during the speech. The Varanthi chose us because we are like them. Deathworld species. Forged in hardship. They are sharing their technology with us right now. Weapons and shields designed specifically to combat the Hollow. In 3 years, we will be ready. Daniel's voice hardened. The question is not whether humanity will fight. We will. We do not run. We do not hide. The question is whether you will stand with us or watch from the shadows while we save your galaxy. The chamber was utterly silent. Then, slowly, a single ambassador rose. It was a being from a species Daniel did not recognize, covered in silver fur with kind, dark eyes. My people were saved by the Varanthi long ago. We owe them a debt. If they trust the humans, then so do we. We will fight." Another ambassador stood. Then another. One by one, species declared their support. Not all of them. Some remained seated, paralyzed by fear or distrust. But enough stood that Daniel knew they had a chance. Sora stepped forward and placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Well spoken, Commander. You have done what we could not." You gave them hope. Daniel looked at the allies gathering around them. It was not enough. Not yet. But it was a start. Back on Earth, the message was clear. Humanity was going to war. The nations of the world began setting aside their differences, forming the United Terran Defense Coalition. Factories that had made cars now made warships. Scientists who had studied medicine now studied Varanthi weapons. And on Kethra 7, the 8,000 surviving Varanthi finished waking. They looked at the galaxy they had left behind, now changed beyond recognition. And they began to teach their human allies everything they knew. The clock was ticking. 3 years until the Hollow arrived. The galaxy had never been more afraid. Or more united. 3 years passed faster than anyone expected. Commander Daniel Porter stood on the bridge of the Endeavor. But the ship was no longer the same vessel that had landed on Kethra 7. Varanthi engineers had upgraded every system. The hull was now coated with the same strange metal that had protected their ruins for 50,000 years. The weapons could tear through battleships. The shields could withstand forces that would crush a planet. And the Endeavor was not alone. Through the viewport, Daniel could see the combined fleet stretching across space in every direction. Thousands of ships from dozens of species formed a wall of metal and light. Human destroyers flew beside Torani cruisers. Varanthi command ships, awakened from ancient hangars on Kethra 7, took positions at the center of the formation. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. And today, they would need every single ship. Dr. Lara Mitchell stood at the science station, monitoring sensor readings. Kevin Brooks worked at engineering, ready to reroute power wherever it was needed. Dr. Christopher Lane waited in the medical bay, prepared for casualties they all hoped would not come. Lieutenant Maria Santos sat at the pilot's console, her hands steady on the controls. They were the same crew that had taken the first steps on Kethra 7. They would be the first into battle now. "All ships are in position," Maria reported. "The fleet is ready, Commander." Daniel nodded. He opened a channel to the entire armada. "This is Commander Porter of the Endeavor. 3 years ago, we discovered a secret that had been buried for 50,000 years. We woke OIs who had been sleeping since before most of your species existed. And we learned that something terrible was coming." He paused, looking out at the stars. "Today, that something arrives. The Hollow is not a creature we can negotiate with. It is not an enemy we can reason with. It is hunger given form, and it will not stop until everything we are has been consumed." On ships across the fleet, crews listened. Humans and aliens alike felt the weight of his words. But I want you to remember something. The Varanthi, the founders of this galaxy's peace, fought the Hollow for 1,000 years. They lost, not because they were weak. They lost because they were alone. Today, we are not alone. Today, every species that ever benefited from the Galactic Assembly stands together. Today, we fight as one galaxy. Sorath's voice joined his, broadcasting from the Varanthi flagship. "My people made a mistake long ago. We tried to protect you by hiding. We thought isolation was safety. We were wrong. Commander Porter and his crew showed us that strength comes from unity, not separation. Whatever happens today, know that we stand with you. Until the end." The channel closed. Silence fell across the fleet. Then the sensors screamed. "Contact," Lavra announced, her voice tight. massive energy signature emerging at the edge of the system. It is the Hollow. Daniel watched the screen as the darkness appeared. It was not a ship. It was not even a single entity. It was shadow given form, spreading across space like a stain. Stars behind it dimmed and died. Light itself seemed afraid to touch it, and it was moving toward them. All ships, Daniel commanded. Forward. The fleet surged to meet the enemy. Thousands of engines ignited at once, pushing toward the approaching darkness. Weapons charged and shields activated. The Hollow did not send ships to fight them. It did not need to. Tendrils of shadow reached out from its main body, each one the size of a moon. They moved with purpose, stretching toward the fleet like hungry fingers. Fire, Daniel ordered. The galaxy lit up. Varanthi weapons, designed specifically to harm the Hollow, unleashed beams of brilliant white energy. Human missiles detonated against the shadow, their warheads modified with Varanthi technology. Tarani plasma cannons burned through tendrils that tried to wrap around their ships. The Hollow screamed, not with sound, but with something deeper. Every being in the fleet felt it in their minds, a wave of cold hunger that tried to crush their will. Daniel gripped the arms of his chair. He felt the pressure trying to make him surrender, trying to convince him that fighting was pointless. He pushed back. Stay focused, he called to his crew. It is trying to break us mentally. Do not let it. Kevin's hand shook, but he kept working. Lavra forced herself to keep reading sensor data. Lane in the medical bay helped injured crew members despite the cold feeling in his chest, and Maria flew the Endeavor like she was born for this moment. Weaving between attacks and keeping them in the fight, the battle raged for hours. Ships were lost. Crews died. The Hollow was wounded again and again, but it kept coming. For every tendril they destroyed, another reached out. Then Soreth's voice came through the communication system. Commander Porter, we have found its center. The Hollow has a core, hidden deep within the shadow. If we destroy it, the whole entity will collapse. Daniel looked at the readings Laura sent to his screen. The core was miles deep inside the darkness. No ship could survive the journey, except one. The Endeavor had the strongest shields in the fleet. And Daniel had the best pilot. Maria, he said quietly, can you get us in there? She turned to look at him. There was fear in her eyes, but there was also determination. I can try. Daniel opened the channel to the fleet. All ships, focus fire on creating a path. The Endeavor is going in. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every weapon in the fleet turned toward a single point in the Hollow's body. The combined firepower of 1,000 species burned a tunnel of light through the darkness. Maria pushed the engines to maximum and dove into the shadow. The journey was nightmare. The darkness pressed against the shields, trying to crush them. The cold invaded the ship, making everyone's breath visible. Alarms blared as systems struggled to survive. But the Endeavor kept flying. They emerged in a pocket of empty space at the heart of the Hollow. And there, floating in the void, was the core. It looked almost like a heart, pulsing with dark energy, feeding the shadow that threatened to consume everything. Fire everything, Daniel ordered. The Endeavor unleashed every weapon it had. Beams of light struck the core. Missiles detonated against its surface. For a moment, it resisted. Then it cracked. The core exploded in a flash of white light. The darkness surrounding them began to dissolve, fading like mist in sunlight. The tendrils attacking the fleet went limp and broke apart. The Hollow was dying. Across the galaxy, cheers erupted on every ship. Species that had been enemies for centuries embraced. The long nightmare was finally over. The Endeavor limped out of the fading shadow, damaged but intact. Daniel looked at his crew, exhausted but alive, and felt something he had not felt in 3 years. Peace. Soreth's voice came through one final time. You did it, Commander. You did what we could not. The galaxy is safe because of you. Daniel shook his head, even though Sarth could not see it. We did it together. All of us. He looked out the viewport at the stars, bright and clear now that the darkness was gone. The galaxy stretched before them, full of life and possibility. Behind him, Maria let out a long breath. So what do we do now, Commander? Daniel smiled. Now? We go home. The Endeavor turned toward Earth, leaving the battlefield behind. The war was over, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy was truly free.